For the most part, I don't have any regrets in how things have worked out in my life. I've been pretty lucky and I've been in the right place at the right time, I suppose. But there's certain things, certain pieces of advice that I know I can give people. I give it to some of my colleagues, and I'm going to record this for you, and maybe one or two of you might actually find this valuable to you too. But in my 40 plus years of employment in healthcare, I'm going to start out by saying that what I've learned is that your employer is not your friend. Now, that's probably obvious to most of you. And honestly, if you're younger than me, and most of you probably are, then you may not need to hear that advice. But I'm going to say it again. Your employer is not your friend. For me, that's always been a hard one to accept. And the reason is, I grew up on the tail end of the baby boomer generation. Almost made it into Gen X, but not quite. But my father was a World War II vet. He was a veteran of D-Day, Battle of the Bulge, the whole thing. His generation had a lot of loyalty towards employers. These guys came back from war, they got a job, they lived their lives in relative peace, and in general, I don't think many of them were very interested in hopping around from job to job. What they wanted stability. They wanted to build a family and stay in one place. And back then, there were employers around. There were factories and companies that could offer a man a job that would last for decades. And if that man showed loyalty towards the employer returned the favor with lifetime employment, usually a good pension when it was time to retire. And so I was kind of raised under that umbrella. And I really felt when I started working that I had to demonstrate loyalty to my employer. I had to work the extra shifts, do the little extras when needed, oftentimes without pay, and, just to make my employer happy. In return, I really believed that that kind of behavior would pay off someday. Maybe a pay raise or a promotion or maybe some other recognition where I could say, there, I stayed loyal and I got what's coming to me. Well, I'm going to tell you that that's not the way it works. It probably never worked that way, but I was always hopeful that it would for me. I've had relatively few jobs in my lifetime, but in almost every instance, despite showing up for work every time, on time or early, and hardly or never calling in sick and taking really minimal vacations and oftentimes going the extra mile on so many occasions, I stupidly believed that it would pay off, that I'd be recognized somehow. I'm not even really sure what that payoff was going to be, but to be honest, the payoffs never truly happened. And I'll tell you why. Because, at least in my opinion, in today's working world, especially in healthcare, your employer, whoever it might be, is not going to stay the same. As much as other employees tend to hop around from job to job, companies that are managing healthcare are also jumping around. Leaders are jumping around. And so that relationship that you might build up with an employer, well, you're going to find out pretty quickly that that boss or that company or whoever is now out the door and a new person or group is taking over. And in almost every instance that I can recall, that new group or that new boss couldn't care less about who you are, what you've done, or what your goals are. In most cases, that new entity believes in a clean slate. Just start everybody out on an equal playing field. Old agreements are out the window. Now, like I said, if you're quite a bit younger than me, you probably know what I'm talking about. You probably have a different attitude and different opinion than I did when I started out. I think a lot don't invest any more in employment than absolutely necessary. Most people do the minimum. Now, to me, that just kind of goes against everything I ever believed in. Yet, the minimalists, as I'll call them, seem to have the right idea. They do just what's required and not a stitch more. And in retrospect, it seems not only does the employer like that, but usually the minimalist gets promoted too. I've spoken before about when I go through resumes and I see a 30-year-old, for example, who's had more employers than actual number of years worked. And it used to make me suspicious. Can't this person get along with others? Did they get forced out of the job because of incompetence? Whatever. But I've learned that in most cases, neither of those are true. They simply tried out for a job, got bored with it, or got a better offer and left. So I guess I've learned that the problem is kind of owned by me. I'm the one who should have adopted the job hopping lifestyle, but I never did. So what's my point? My point is, don't fall for it like I did. Look out for number one. You're number one. Be aware that no matter what you bring to the table, it isn't going to get you very far. Now, I don't care what your job title is. No one is that valuable. Everyone is expendable. Maybe that's why we're in the situation that we're in, for example, with the nursing shortage. The employer probably figures that they'd rather shut the doors to the hospital rather than compensate nurses or housekeepers or other people that work in the hospital, at least better than they currently do. And the counter argument is always that hospitals, for example, are beholden to the insurers and reimbursement. And you can keep that argument going. I don't even know where it stops. If you demand more from the insurers, then they're going to cry that the government doesn't give them enough and their subscribers will have to pay higher premiums. So anyway, I'm getting off topic, but it's very easy to do in this kind of situation. My point again is, as I sit here and share some of my wisdom and experience with you, just be aware that there's no strong bond between you and your employer. So do what others do. Be mobile. And I guess hop around. I've often repeated to others what a mentor of mine told me back in like 1990. She said, don't stay in any one place more than 5 years. And she meant that by 5 years, you've probably gotten all you're going to get from that job. And that employer has probably gotten all that they really want out of you. And if you don't leave then, it's a chance for your employer to find a reason to make your life a little more miserable each day until you do leave. And I hate to admit it, but in retrospect, I really think it's very true. I never followed that advice very well, unfortunately. My first two professional jobs were 8 years and 6 years, and then a 2-year stint. But that was followed by a 13-year, and then right now, currently, another 13-year stint with one employer. Those early jobs were short, and that was because I was advancing my education, entering new professions. But the last 26 years, I've had just 2 employers. The first one was good till about year 5, and at that point, I probably should have left, but it had become comfortable, and it was predictable. And the learning had kind of stopped, and I had become a supervisor and was falling into that trap of doing a lot of extras for my employer for free. I stuck with it until the place was bought by another hospital, and honestly, they couldn't care less who I was or what I had done. I was treated the same as the guy or gal who started yesterday. I was probably a little more expensive too, which is always an incentive to, for an employer to find ways to kind of encourage you to move along. And I did. And the last 13 years have been almost a carbon copy. What's different now is that I'm at an age where I'm really not looking for that next career move, not looking to build more bridges. I am expensive compared to my newer colleagues, and I know that at some point that's going to be recognized by my new chair and the corporate board. At least I recognize it now, and I can at least brace for what's to come. And I'm fine with that. When I go to work, my patients and I get along well. I truly want to help them regardless of who they are, and I'm a lot less judgmental in my older age for sure. But I know that time is limited. Things are good now, but I'll be viewed as someone whose time has come to depart and make way for new blood and typically less expensive blood. So the summary is this: don't fall for it. Don't carry loyalty to an employer too far. They owe you a paycheck, and you owe them exactly what's in your employment agreement. Nothing more. And that still sounds in some ways so wrong to me, but it's just a fact. If you're in healthcare, your duty is to your patient and your family and your own well-being, nothing more. And it's good to keep your eyes open to what type of world we live in today. So, if you found this helpful, please like the video and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.